So one of the benefits of DayZ, say, over a GTA, you're obviously long-term committed to a character, and that one character has repercussions for all your actions over the long period, you know? So if you do something, that's going to shape the future for your character. In DayZ, you know, you can do what you want for the most part. You can roleplay one life, you can play yourself, you can do something else, and it doesn't fall back on your previous life. Which is very different. There's a long-term commitment to your character on GTA where that's not the case on DayZ. You can do whatever you want, really. There are roleplay servers on DayZ, and that's actually what we're going to try out very soon with Ed, Mr Gibbons. They've launched a new DayZ roleplay.
Hey, she's a beauty.
Welcome to Tartups, a podcast for content creators to come on and share their stories, experiences, and advice. And today I'm super excited. I have Bosh. Welcome.
Hi, what's going on? Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to have our little chinwag here and see what yeah. I'm excited to have our little
Absolutely. All right. So the way we start things off is we do 3 random questions. So are you ready?
Random questions. Does that mean
3 random questions?
Is there a time limit on the answer, or is it like quick fire?
You go as long as you want. It's random. It's not quick.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready. Hit me.
All right. Best thing about where you live.
Best thing about where I live. Generally speaking, it's obviously I'm from, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm a dub, so I live in Dublin City in Ireland. By and large, it's a pretty slow-paced city. You know, I've lived in Atlanta in my time in the past. I've been to bigger cities, and it's a pretty slow pace of life, which kind of suits me. You know, you don't get lost in the space. The pros and cons, I guess, but the pros are that everybody knows you, but the cons are everybody knows you to an extent as well.
Exactly.
But it's got, like, I imagine it's got like a small town kind of vibe in America. It's a nice place to live. The people are good. The weather's nice. Never too hot, never too cold, but always raining. Which you kind of learn to accept. But yeah, it's a nice place to live. There's nothing, you know, particularly nasty about Dublin. You know, it's nice people, nice enough weather. No animals here that are gonna like walk up on you and, you know, bite you in the ass.
No giant spiders or anything like that.
Exactly. So we have a pretty easy place living. Dublin's is a nice place.
All right, now let's get on to question number 2.
Okay.
Now the random question, not the quick questions.
Oh, right, so there are quick questions coming up, are there?
Oh, there's no quick questions here.
Okay, thank God.
All right, so if you could pick any professional sport, pick the 2 teams to go watch, where are you going and what teams are you watching?
Oh, it's a loaded question because I'm a massive sports guy. I grew up playing sport all my life. I watch any sport, but you know what? I'm a big North American sports fan, particularly NFL. My bucket list sporting event might be the Masters, honestly. But if you're talking sport with 2 teams. Yep. It would probably be the Super Bowl because you're going to go to an NFL game. You got to go to the biggest stage. It would be probably hosted. I'm a big Vikings fan. I got 4 cousins, family from Minneapolis, so I'm a Minnesota sports fan. So the Vikings would have to play. Yep. And then I guess you got to play against one of the iconic teams in the NFL. Someone that you'd really like to beat. So maybe the Cowboys.
Okay.
maybe the Cowboys just because of, you know, in recent times.
Who they are.
Yeah, I mean, I would have said New England, but that would have been with Tom Brady. Tom Brady's not there anymore, so
we're awful now.
Yeah, well, you're in transition. It happens. It's very hard to maintain that kind of dynasty level.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
All right. So the last question is, what was the last good movie or TV show you watched?
Oh, okay. I'm a big movie guy, but I haven't watched as. I have an 8-year-old, so I don't watch as much between streaming and, you know, balancing the misses and the kiddo and making short form content because I do all that myself, or I try to. I don't get as much time in anymore as I did growing up watching movies, but anything up to like 2010, I've watched everything. More recently, not so much, but my favorite show of the last year might be House of the Dragon. I mean,
okay,
I enjoyed like I enjoyed Lord of the Rings, or not Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, as most did, and kind of fell off a little bit towards the end. But I really enjoyed House of the Dragon. The last season of Fargo we watched recently enough. I really enjoyed Fargo. I thought that was a really good show. What else? Any movies recently that I've really enjoyed? I haven't seen June 2. I'm looking forward to seeing June 2 soon.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that. Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't even think of the last movie I really enjoyed.
That's all right.
Watch a lot of TV shows though. We're watching Vikings. Right. Me and the missus have started watching Vikings now, which we're enjoying. We relate to that show.
Did you watch The Last Kingdom?
I haven't, but actually a couple of my friends over here in Ireland, they've all advised me to watch it, and that's kind of next after Vikings. We have Vikings coming up, but then I have the Boys and House of the Dragon. The next season,
the Boys. Yeah,
they're dropping at the start of next month, which will take my attention, me and the missus' attention. TV shows is kind of when me and the missus just relax late night, kind of watch an episode or two. It's kind of our time, so.
Yep. TV time with the wife. That's same over here.
So the Boys, House of the Dragon coming up in the middle of Vikings, and Last Kingdom I've heard is fantastic. You've watched it, obviously?
It is, yeah. It is really good. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So congrats on hitting 50K on TikTok. That's pretty cool.
Oh, you saw that, did you?
Yeah. Hey, I gotta try to do some homework.
There's a bit of research there. I respect it.
All right. So first of all, where does the name come from?
Bosch Merchant. Okay, there's actually a story to that. So, as I just alluded to there a minute ago, I played sport my whole life, predominantly rugby and cricket, summer winter sports over here. So I played a lot of football, like soccer as you'd call it in America or Canada, when I was very young, up to about 12, and then I kind of where I'm from, there's a big culture. I'm smack bang in the middle of rugby country in Ireland, in Dublin. Okay, so it's a big kind of rugby emphasis here. You might go elsewhere and you'll have Gaelic as the real kind of focus, depending where you are. Or you might have different sports obviously dominate. But where I'm smack down in the middle of rugby country. So I played rugby all my life, and I'm a big dude. I'm 6'3", and I'm probably I'm a little bit heavier than I was when I was younger. Okay, there's a little bit of puppy weight going on there, but I'm about 100 or 260, 270 pounds. So I'm a big unit. And we call in rugby, we call a Bosh is when you truck somebody. So in American football, when you have the ball and you run over them when they're trying to attack you, that's a Bosh.
Yeah. Okay.
So Bosch Merchant is literally just somebody who does it a lot. It's a rugby term, and I used to actually be Bosch Merchant 12 because that's my number. That was my number when I played rugby, but I dropped the 12 just for brand reasons, I guess, and that's where we're at. We're at Bosch Merchant, so that's the origins of my name. It's actually a lot of people come in and they think I sell merchandise for Bosch power tools or fridge freezers and stuff.
That's too funny.
I lived in Atlanta for a little bit, coaching and playing rugby, and it's actually crazy the respect that, I don't know how it translates. Obviously, it's probably similar in Canada. But how much respect just the random punter has for rugby players. Everyone obviously plays American football. When you say you play rugby, people are like, "Wow, you play rugby, man!" It's actually respect. It seems to be respected and held in decent regard in North America, anyway.
So now I've had some fellow Irishmen on. I've had Pep, I've had Tweak, I've had Ed, Mr. Gibbons, and when Gibbons was on, he was telling me about during COVID, you guys were really locked down. It was wild.
Well, it's good that you saved the best to last anyway in that list. That's what I'm saying. So. I know they're all the boys are legends. I have a lot of time for all of them. COVID was pretty hard. It hit us pretty badly, honestly, but. Again, when you have a family and you're a streamer and you create content, I mean, COVID hit me the day I started content creating, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? I said goodbye to my social life a long time ago. But it was
what 2018?
Yeah, 2018. 2018. So COVID was bad, but I don't know. It didn't really hit me as badly as it did other people, because I guess I don't know. I'm a bit older as well, though. Noof. I've just turned 40 in December, so in terms of the content creators and people in the online space, as you can probably attest to, I'm an older dude, so I've done all my partying, I've had all my fun, I lived some wild years in my 20s, early 30s, you know, and I'm happy with where I am right now, and that's a little bit more settled, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, so, you know, who was Bosh before jumping into content creation? Sort of, you know, what's your backstory? You don't have to share any of those, you know, those wild stories. That, you know, that could be the Patreon version of, you know, Bosh.
I don't know if people can pay enough money to hear these stories, to be honest with you, my man. I grew up in Dublin, obviously. I'm a Dublin boy. Went to school here, went to university here. Moved to Atlanta for a while, did a little bit of player coaching just in between things. Was working in sales with different things. Predominantly what I used to work in was I was a sales rep for, first of all, for a alcohol wholesaler. So I would be a rep around Dublin, and then I moved jobs to a craft beer distributor. So essentially what we did is we had the license for certain breweries and the distribution for some North American beers. You might know Brooklyn Lager, Sierra Nevada, just things like that. And essentially we had the distribution rights and the ownership of those brands over here, and it was just about sales, managing clients, going to your managing, you know, your pubs, your hotels, your liquor stores, all those kind of people and things, and that's what I was in. That's what I was doing, a lot of sales.
Yeah. And then what made you jump into streaming?
Honestly, I was it's actually a pretty specific story. I've always been, look, I've always played sport, but I've always been a gamer to an extent. I've always enjoyed video games. I grew up with like a Mega Drive, and we had a Commodore 64 when I was very young, you know. Then I moved on to PlayStation. I can still remember the Christmas when I was 12 when I got my PlayStation when it was released, you know, earlier that year. So I've always been a console gamer. So I've always kind of enjoyed video games regardless. And I was playing a game called Dark Souls 3. Are you familiar with it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Dark Souls 3 is a pretty challenging game. And as you do with a lot of games, I was looking for help, looking for a little bit of guidance, I guess, in the game. I was having a bit of difficulty, so a friend had mentioned to me a few years previous about a thing called Twitch, and I didn't even bat an eyelid to it. I'd always have that opinion of Twitch as, why would I watch somebody playing a video game? Like, why would you do that? Why would you not play the game yourself? And that was very much how I saw it. But then I got onto YouTube to look up some of these videos about, you know, Dark Souls 3 and help me through it, and I came across a link to a Twitch channel, and it was a guy called the Happy Hob. He's a British guy. He's a no-hit runner on Dark Souls, all the Dark Souls game, all the Soulborn game. He does them all. But anyway, I got his name, and I ended up clicking onto Twitch, and I started watching Hob. And first and foremost, he's a very charismatic, engaging creator. He's obviously very good at the game, but he also has a personality that draws you in. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing was, I saw all this chat. I saw all this community, this interactive element, this community that was engaging with him and he was engaging with. And I just saw this whole kind of, I don't know, community that was active, which I had never even considered before. So the more I watched it, the more I got engrossed by the content that he was giving out, but also his banter with the community and the community chat moving and having interactions with people in the chat. And I guess that was the big, you know, penny dropping moment of me going, wow, this is way more than I first thought about somebody just playing a video game. Like, there's so much more going into this. His production as an entertainer, his ability to entertain and host, the community element. And I was just drawn in. And I just thought to myself, you know what? You could give that a go. You could have that do that a little bit on the side. And that is literally what got me in. Happy Hob is the reason I started streaming, honestly. So
cool. And to go back a step, you know, being a gamer and a sports guy and athlete, did any of the video games that came out for Rugby Focus, did they ever do justice to the game?
I was you know, the way I'm gonna ask you a question now. We're gonna flip reverse this, okay? If you had one game to play for your life, from any time in your life that you've played, so you're looking for the game that you are competitively and comparatively the best at compared to everyone else out there, what game would you choose?
Probably NHL 94. Because I'm older than you. I'm north of 50. So that was, after we go out to the bars in college, we get home. All right, let's go. Let's fire it up. And then, on the console, and whoever can take out Gretzky, that was awesome.
Gretzky was the cheat code, was he?
Oh, yeah.
So I used to play NHL Face Off, which I used to love on the Mega Drive. Do you remember that game?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. The fights that you'd have in that game I used to love that game. But I'm similar though. So I used to have a game called, it's funny, it's a rugby game. And all the rugby games, in my opinion, since then have not been decent. But there's one rugby game called Jonah Loma Rugby. It came out in 1996 when I was like in first year in college. So I guess I'd just gone into high school for you guys or whatever. And yeah, I would sit there and discover, this is before, people need to understand listening to this is before you had the internet. This is before you could like Google cheat codes or watch YouTube videos. This is when you had the manual and maybe the odd thing, you'd buy those gaming magazines with the cheat codes in those little pamphlets.
Yeah.
Do you remember them?
Uh-huh.
So you had to discover everything yourself or word of mouth with your friends. I literally discovered every glitch, every bug in that game myself. And I was very, very good. That would be the game that I would play for my life. But that was a rugby game, so that's my favorite game. Probably my favorite game of all time still. And it's a rugby game, which is crazy because I think most rugby games are ass.
I was always curious about that. Did any rugby game come close to the sport, to make it enjoyable, or was it just didn't feel right?
Yeah, John Lennon Rugby is one of the most playable sports games of all time. Whether you liked rugby or not, it's just so playable. And they really missed a beat by never replicating that. It was made by a crowd called Codemasters, and they just never followed up on it at all. And it was it was really disappointing because I think the game did relatively well as well.
All right, so now going back to streaming, what was the first game that you streamed?
The first game that I streamed do you know what? I don't recall the exact first game. It may have been PUBG or it may have been Resident Evil. So my first year of streaming, my first ever stream, after the whole story I told you, my first ever stream was me sitting on my coffee table about 5 meters away from my TV with an Xbox Kinect filming me. So it didn't even have any audio. It was just me sitting down, and it was an Xbox game because I variety streamed on Xbox with a capture card for about a year. But I guess it was maybe PUBG, early PUBG on console, or one of the Resident Evil games, or maybe Skyrim. I can't remember, but it was one of those games anyway.
So were you really a variety streamer that whole first year and just seeing what was working? Yeah, so pretty much I went in blind, but I had a game plan, honestly. So after I saw that first stream and I saw how bad the quality was in my head, I was like, I can't do this again. So what I did is I pretty much compiled like everything I needed: a green screen, lights. I remember hitting up a computer science student who had put together a terrible little PC for €250. So I picked that up. So I got a capture card, and it was real like ragtag, kind of put whatever together with sticky tape that I could. And that's how I streamed. But I used to do things very differently. So I used to have a story to my stream. I used to make characters. I used to have a book of Bosh. I used to literally manually write in every single follower and subscriber, and I would have like characters come into the stream. So I would cosplay characters, and essentially I used to have like a channel trailer for the whole thing. I had a whole story to everything. So that was kind of what I approached my first year with. And then I found GTA Roleplay. The community got me a PC. I fell into GTA Roleplay. I got into NoPixel, and that was the end of my creativity. So out of the gates, you were destined to be an RP streamer then, essentially, or jumping into that realm?
Well, I guess the community had always told me that you would love GTA roleplay because, again, this is just it goes to show what our opinions and thoughts are of things until we experience something. I always say, like, if somebody has an opinion on something that they haven't experienced, it's probably, like, any uninformed opinion, it's probably not an opinion you should really be listening to, right?
Yeah.
So I had an opinion of GTA roleplay, as I'm sure many people still out there who've never watched a roleplay stream do, that, like, why would you play a character in a video game? What are you doing? But I got into it and I loved it and I was hooked. It was like online acting essentially, and the community out there, the GTA roleplay community, is very passionate. And they very passionate. I'm very I don't know what the other word I'm looking for is, but they're very passionate anyway. Okay.
And now, so with GTARP, back then, were you guys sort of scripting or planning what you guys sort of, how the stream was going to go that day, or was it really all off the cuff?
Massively off the cuff. You might have a vague plan, as in, okay, we're going to try and rob this or try and obtain this. Like, obviously, it dependent on who you're with, if you're a criminal or you're a cop or you're in a gang or whatever your group's goal is or your individual's goal is, you're usually working towards something. So you'd have a rough idea of, like, okay, we need to try and do this today, but that would literally be it. Everything that comes from dialogue and chases, and you might do a plan. If you're in a criminal group, you might, like, come up with a heist plan, so you have, like, jumps or block offs or ambushes planned. But in terms of the actual dialogue and what goes on and who comes out on top or not, that is completely, not random. It's just whatever happens kind of thing.
Okay, so, like, on a NoPixel, there's no, like, weekly meetings. Okay, guys, let's try to focus on this week with everybody. It's just roll the dice and see what happens.
Well, you might have gang meetings at the start of a day to get everyone on the same page, but or police, I know the PD have PD meetings as well at the start of each shift, so they'll all go into a room and discuss what's happening, what's current. But generally speaking, outside of that, you make what you can. You're the bringer of the content yourself.
Oh, nice. That's pretty cool. And now, going back to streaming, since you started to now, what have been some of the tougher things, harder things about being a full-time content creator?
The time, first of all, it takes. Especially when you're doing everything yourself, there's a huge expectation to stay relevant in the content space, and there's a huge unwritten pressure put on content creators to stay relevant. And I think we are all guilty ourselves of convincing ourselves we're not doing enough, and especially if you're falling short of your own expectations, be it like numbers, subs, YouTube hits, whatever that is. If you're not hitting what you're happy with or what you're expecting, and I don't think many of us are, you always put pressure on yourself to do more, and that can become very consuming. And obviously my daughter's 8 now, so when I started she was young, she was 1 or 2. It puts a lot of pressure, if you allow it to, on your relationship outside of streaming. And definitely for a couple of years I had a huge difficulty finding that balance and maintaining that balance. There's also a level of, my missus doesn't really understand. She doesn't watch my streams. She doesn't really, like, for years she used to say I was, like, rather than when I'd be working, I'd say it was working, she'd say you're playing computer games. Exactly. So there was a kind of a bit more pressure added there, because there probably wasn't an acceptance of you're not actually doing any work, or you're not, like, you know what I'm saying? So
how hard is it? You sit there and play video games.
Exactly. So off the bat, one of the hardest things I've had to deal with, and still do, I am a massive struggler of working efficiently and balancing my time well, being efficient with my time. I think that is alone the hardest thing that content creators have to compete with, yourself, and pressure you put on yourself, and also working smart, because at the end of the day, especially if you're a live streamer, there's no guarantee. You can be convincing yourself you're working hard, but you could be streaming 10 hours, 12 hours a day with not really getting much benefit out of it, and there's no guarantee that you're going to grow. There's no guarantee that you're going to make more money than yesterday, regardless of how much time you put into a live stream. And that's a tough thing to swallow, because there's not many other job specs out there where you don't get paid for the hours you put in, regardless of your work. And streaming is very much like that. You can put in hours of work and you're not getting anything back, and that can be brutal, especially from a mental capacity, you know, in terms of the psychology of it and how much it grates on you and grinds on you, and the questions of self-doubt are always constantly arise. You know, it's a very tough industry to operate in and exist in and stay relevant in. So I think that's probably the hardest thing I've had to deal with. Outside of that, just you're your own worst enemy. I'm actually very fortunate. I've operated in the GTA world for a very long time, but I've always tried to be very open and transparent, and I'm not a very confrontational person in that I'll keep to myself. I'll do my own thing. I won't get involved in any drama, toxicity. Like, I'll steer clear of that. I'll always be very vocal with my community, explain what's going on. I don't buy into any of that. So whereas you might hear reputations and rumors that the GTA community can be very toxic, which it can. I mean, of course it can. It's a passionate viewer base that has its little groups that follow each other, and it gets competitive, as any space does. I've been very fortunate that we've never really had any of that toxicity, you know, make its way over to me. So I'm very thankful for that, honestly. We have a very nice little community. It's very, you know, pleasant. I don't really... In all my time streaming, I think we've only ever had to ban a handful of people. You know, I've been very fortunate with the group I have, so I'm lucky in that regard.
Excellent. Yeah, you know, just going back onto the mental aspect of being a content creator, you know, I don't think people realize enough how hard that is. You know, just even if you're just streaming 8 to 10 hours a day, you're not really having that human-to-human contact. You are just reading chat and just really a one-way communication. And you know, that's, you do that 5-6 days a week, that, you know, that adds up over time. And it's just, it's got to be really difficult to watch that number. See if those numbers go down, you're your own worst enemy. You
are. And I'll tell you this, for whatever people think, watching their favorite streamers and the content they're pushing out and stuff, 2 things. One, the internet and content creation can be the loneliest place to exist in the world. Even if you're around people online all the time and playing games and stuff, it is a very isolating and lonely existence if you let it kind of become that. And secondly, the time management as well. Like, your time, it can consume you even when you're not at the computer. So you can be doing things, and then you can remove yourself away from your PC to maybe go and do things with your family or whatever. But again, if you allow it to, it can very easily and quickly take over all that time as well, where you're constantly on your phone, checking on videos, seeing what's going on. You know, it can consume you even when you're not at the PC, and that is a big risk and a big danger, honestly, of content creation. And I've heard it said a lot of times where people have friends in these content creation places like in Austin and stuff, and you'll talk to them and I remember a streamer once said this to me, a big streamer now. I was having a conversation with them about it, and they said to me, look, to be honest with you, Simon, I love content creation, and obviously it's great that we're living where we are and we have lots of content creators around me, but the problem with that is my friends are content creators. So when I am not content creating, all we're talking about and thinking about is content creation. So it's literally content creation 24/7. So there's no escape from it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other, you know, to add sort of another layer on top of that, you know, first of all, if you're a main game streamer, there's that effect. Like, okay, I can't, you know, if the game sucks, I still got to drive through it. Adding in being an RP'er, you can't just play the game. You've got to be in character, and that's, you know, you're just balancing so much. And by the end of the stream, you're probably just drained, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, you're literally putting on a show, especially when you're in character. You're in character all the time, and it takes a lot of focus. A lot of I don't think people genuinely give enough credit to creators, especially those really extrovert creators who are very interactive, you know, with their chat and with the game they play. Like, it takes a lot of focus and a lot of emotional energy. And again, when you're putting all that emotional energy, especially when you're a live streamer, into that live, when you come away from that live, like, that energy is expended, you know, it's gone into that, and you can be very quickly very exhausted emotionally, even with your family or friends, or like that energy level, that output into your stream takes a lot out of you for the rest of the day. And I don't think enough people give that actual credit, you know, of being on all the time, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And now, over the course of the years, when, was it a gradual increase in viewership, or were there some key moments that happened that you said, I could take this full time now?
For me personally, it was always I was kind of trying to be like strategic in my approach. I always had ideas of numbers. I wouldn't go full time unless I got to here in my head. For me personally, it was honestly a case of I was kind of pushed into it because I lost my job. I lost my job while I was streaming, and it became a situation where, look, this isn't ideal. I wouldn't have gone full time with this if I still had my job and if I had other options and I was still earning. This would not be where I'd be at now, but sometimes you just got to take a chance with whatever hand you're dealt. To be honest with you as well, me losing my job was probably on account of everything I've talked previously. I put too much energy into what I was doing here, neglected work a little bit, and unfortunately, things happened, and I was in a position where, okay, I got to give this a go because I gotta see if I can do this now. I gotta make this worth something. You know what I mean? It's got to be worth something. So that's kind of what forced my hand, honestly. And I was fortunate. I was fortunate enough to first of all be on NoPixel, so roleplay. I'm still adamant to this day that for a content creator, certainly a live content creator, the best opportunity and environment to grow is in NoPixel, because roleplay, first of all, is such a cross-pollination of streams and characters and integration of people. There's constant interactions. You're working with people, you're playing with people. NoPixel obviously is the big boy, so it has all the big streamers. In terms of, well, not all the big streamers, but it has some very, very big streamers, big names, exactly, with huge communities. And the big plus with that is there's natural cross-pollination. Like if I'm playing with, say, Lord Kevin, I would play with Kevin a lot on GTA when I'm around. He's probably the biggest GTA streamer, so he'd ordinarily have 20,000 people watching him, and you're playing with him in his gang. There's going to be a crossover of community. You're going to get exposure through his eyes. People are going to see you and be introduced to your character. They might come across and get introduced to you as a streamer and like your personality. But in terms of opportunity, there is no other game category, in my opinion, out there like roleplay, GTA roleplay, and particularly NoPixel. Like the opportunity it is for somebody to grow through being exposed to the community, and the sharing, as you can imagine, of communities and viewers on NoPixel is so unique, because people like to see what's happening in scenarios from other people's perspectives. You know what I mean? And you'll get people coming over to your stream to see what your point of view is on a situation, or you might be with your boys and two of them might be down and you're the last one up, so that people might go over to you to watch how you deal with it or what happens, or if you can get the guys out. And there's nothing else like that, in my opinion, in a content creation sphere. And I was so fortunate to fall into that, and that's pretty much the reason I am where I am. Organically made friends with people who helped me out. Obviously I was in a place that was being showcased with a big viewership, and I was fortunate to go from there. Honestly, I was very fortunate. Excellent.
Yeah, that's, I think that's one of the unique things about RPs. Like, you don't even get that in TV or movies. You can bounce around and see everybody's perspective and sort of what's going on. Now, a question I have to ask you though, when because you're 40, mature, and versus a lot of the other people in this space, they may be in their 20s or whatnot. Well,
my parents might argue with you on the mature point, but sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay. I'm sure all of our parents are the same way, but often, not often, but sometimes those communities could be like, maybe you did something to offend this guy. Now, have you ever had that situation where the community members of whoever you just tweaked pop in now and are just being asses and stuff like that? Is that an aspect of RP sometimes?
Very common.
Yeah,
very common. Because what you have to understand is people have their favorite streamers, which is fine. People watch mainly their own streamer's perspective, which is fine. But there's an element of tribalism on GTA as well, with like gangs and whatever group you're watching. A lot of people watch exclusively mainly their groups, and if something happens against their group, it's very much comparative to team sport. You don't like the rival teams as much. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And sometimes things can boil over in character in the game, and people jump across not having the maturity to understand that, hey, like, let's leave it at that. There's no need to like go and attack. Yeah, exactly. But sometimes the difficulty there is, you know, as a streamer, and I always say this, you need to be careful how you address things and how you talk about things to your community, because ultimately, regardless, you know, sometimes people can pick up on negative things or things that aren't necessarily what you mean to say, and they can run with it. Because I have this saying, I always have to tell myself this when I'm talking. The chances are, and especially the chances obviously grow bigger the bigger your viewership is, but the chances are when I'm streaming GTA on a given day and I'm trying to talk sense about something, there's probably a 10-year-old in his basement waiting for his mom's lasagna for dinner, you know, picking lint out of his belly button and blowing his nose on himself, that has no clue, you know, about life yet, and it doesn't take in anything you're saying, and is just going to run with whatever they want anyway. So if you're pushing out that kind of narrative that has an air of negativity about it, they won't understand, and they'll like jump over and try and think that they're white knighting for you or defending your honor, you know. And happens a lot in roleplay. Probably the worst place for it is roleplay, unfortunately, you know.
All right. So in jumping back to streaming, just one more you know, I guess your experience, your opinion on it, you know, doing this for so many years now, how, you know, one of the things I think is important as a full-time creator is building in some sort of breaks and whatnot. How, you know, how have you built in, like, you know, holidays or breaks, or because as a streamer you don't get sick days, you don't get vacation time. How do you know, how have you dealt with that?
I haven't, to be honest with you. I am a very unorganized person in terms of structure. I wish I could be a lot more structured about things, and I haven't been, and I haven't. And it comes and goes, I guess. You ride waves, emotional waves, and you feel things out in your head or what's going around. Obviously, there'll be planned trips and holidays, which you can't avoid, but I haven't traditionally, personally, been a great person, and it's been it definitely is to your detriment. I'm not very scheduled, I'm not very regimented, and I'm not very planned, and that affects you. Fortunately, I've always had a pretty nice community. Like, we have a nice community, they're very understanding. It's a little bit, being an older person, I think people get it a little bit more, you know, they're less demanding of people. I think the expectation of content creators, especially when you're younger, is, hey, you're here for us, you're here to make content, we're here to watch you, this is what you do, keep doing it. And the older you get, and the older your audience gets, I feel there's an element of growing up and maturity and people understanding life and things, and, you know, the psychological factors, family life factors, and all those influences that take people away from streaming or content creation. So to answer your question, I haven't done it well, but having an older community and being an older streamer and having that older agenda, I think makes it easier for me to take, and makes it easier for the community to take, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And now, you know, what have been some of the highlights looking back since you first went live, you know, in this space?
Highlights for me. Okay.
Yes.
I can still remember my first ever raid. I can still remember my first ever GTA raid, a big raid. It was from that was a great stream. I got raided by a friend called Laura Kevin, and that was the first time I ever hit 4-digit figures viewership.
Oh wow.
I think he rated me for like 7,000 people back in the day, but that was monster, and also such a shock and surprise, and the emotional kind of energy that came from that. That's a huge moment I'll never forget. There was also a time I remember playing early doors when I was playing a game with some of the boys after GTA was invited to play one of the games, and I'll never forget looking in the Discord call. There were 7 of us playing, and Kevin was one of them. The other 2 were Summit 1G, who I'm actually become very good friends with over time organically, and Shroud was also in the Discord call. And this is when I was tiny, and I remember thinking to myself, Jesus Christ, this is like people would give their arm and their leg to play with these people, you know, and here you are playing a random GTA map racing game. So that was a big moment for me of realization of how you're very fortunate to be where you are, you know. And we've done a few charity streams. We did a charity stream a couple of years ago for mental health and suicide awareness, which was a very successful stream. That was my first big charity stream I ever did, but we did it in honor of a friend who sadly had passed away, and we did a theme for it. We called it Blue for a Day, and that is always a stream I will always remember, because it was the first time I saw firsthand the generosity and love out there from people. I'm not a huge person on charity streams for the simple reason that I'm one of those people that wants a charity stream to hold worth, and I feel like sometimes if you do it too much, you lose your voice or your impact. So I like to really kind of pick and choose charities when we do it, and not do it very regularly, because I feel like once you do something too much, it loses its pull, its impact. So that 24-hour stream was very, very memorable, and that's something I'll always remember. And just lots of good times, good people, meeting. I've never been to a con. I went to my first con in Dublin. I'm actually going to TwitchCON EU and hope to go to TwitchCon America this year. But I've never been to a proper con. I've never really met any streamers. And I remember meeting, being recognized at this little event last year called Gamerfest in Dublin. I went along, and a girl recognized me, and it was such a nice moment. You know what I mean? Just to have somebody come up to you and say, "Wow, thanks so much," and just be appreciative, and you just to be in that position where somebody is appreciative to you for doing what you do, and it was just a lovely moment, honestly. For somebody to come up and say, like, oh, how's it going? I'm the older I've got, the more kind of sentimental about things I've become, and like little moments like that and getting pictures with people, not that it's happened very often, is always something that I remember and I really enjoy. So yeah, they'd probably be the highlights, to be honest. And then having one of my mods came all the way down from Belfast to meet me, and that was fantastic. You know what I mean? Just to see the faces and put the faces on the names of people you're interacting with on the daily is just a very nice thing to have, Okay, weather delay, guys, on the podcast. Okay, there is a weather delay, ladies and gentlemen. We are live here from Dublin, Ireland. We're just getting word in here that there is a lightning storm over Newfoundland, so we are expecting weather delays. We can't give you a time on when we will resume play, but we will be asking the officials and checking in every 10 minutes and check that as soon as light is at a level that it's able to go back and resume this podcast, we will do so.
So welcome back. So last time where we left off, you were telling about some the charity event you did to raise some money.
I did a quick costume change in the time as well, if anyone's wondering what's going on. It's the reason we paused was because I like to do my costume change halfway through. Charity event. Yes, we were talking about, I think it was your first time doing a charity event for, maybe it was Sick Kids or Make-A-Wish or something like that. Oh, we were talking about my most memorable streams, right? Yes. It was honestly just a mental health awareness kind of stream I did, and I kind of just dedicated it in essence to somebody who had passed away, and it was the first time I did a big charity stream, and I kind of actually do want to revisit it because I have a kind of little bit of a vision for something. I'll give you do you want the quick concept? Yeah, absolutely. So the concept I have, and this is what I ran with, was called Blue for a Day, and ironically the guy's name was streamer name was Blue, but it was Blue for a Day, and obviously blue ties into feeling blue and being depressed and down. So that kind of tied into the whole mental health, suicide prevention or awareness side of things. And the idea is and was to call it Blue for a Day, and that it's open to any streamer. So it goes for a 24-hour period, and it's open to any streamer who wants to get involved. We all share the link. And the idea is that everybody who is taking part in it, streamer wise, wears blue. So we turn Twitch blue for a day. Oh, nice. Do you get me? And that's kind of the long-term plan. I want to do it again around September, October this year again. And we will definitely revisit it and reach out to friends and see who's involved. But like anything, you need to be consistent, and you need it takes time for these things to gain traction and support, but I think it would be a lovely thing, and it's a nice visual gesture that hasn't really been done, you know, that could maybe potentially, you know, turn into something if done again correctly, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, adding into that, the whole mental health side of it, you know, just it's something that doesn't get talked about enough. And then on the content creation side, you know, mental health is a big thing. You know, you think about how long you're streaming for, these people just by themselves streaming, and hours, 8 to 10 hours a day, possibly 5 days a week. Over time, that has an effect on you.
Oh, 100% it does. And then that's not even tying into the whole element of, you might go 10 hours a day. And I do talk about this to chat regularly. I think I might have mentioned it in our first half. There's no guarantee on returns to your time invested in the streaming. So you could be streaming for 12 hours a day, and there mightn't be the returns that you want or expect or need. And that increasingly, you know, mounts the pressure. And that's going to, you know, be like a kind of pressure cylinder building up and up and up and up. You know, it does all contribute. You know, it's a tough place to exist, honestly. And it's definitely, mental health is definitely, I think it's being talked about more and more, thankfully, but it's still definitely a taboo, I think, particularly with males, more so with the male on our generation, you know, a little bit older. We didn't grow up with the internet per se, you know, that our kind of generation is still kind of feeling it out, where I think the younger generation are a lot more open about it, thankfully.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the other aspect of that whole mental health aspect of things is, as from a creator standpoint, is you put yourself out there, you're on camera where, you know, everybody from, you know, from Twitch or all the socials, they're anonymous, and they can say whatever the hell they want to you. And you just sort of got to, you know, try to absorb it and just, you know, keep putting the show on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you choose your career path and you choose your path. And if you choose to be a public figurehead in some capacity, or, you know, out there for everyone to see, there, you know, with the good comes the bad. And that's unfortunately the bad part of the internet. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people out there who are going to pass judgment from whatever situation they're in themselves. It doesn't matter, but they'll watch you for 30 seconds and pass judgment on you off those 30 seconds. So it can be tough. Yeah,
absolutely. You have that benefit from other creators who just main a game. That's a tough thing to do if you main a game. I think you said you started out, you know, you're in the GTARP side of things. When you're stuck in one game, that has an effect on you, and you have a fear that you don't want to switch up the games because you're going to lose your viewership.
Huge factor in a lot of people's decisions in the streaming world, especially coming from the GTA roleplay world, which is NoPixel, which is a particularly niche game category, but at the same time, as I said, alluded to earlier on the podcast, it's probably the game category that has the most cross-pollination and shared viewership base, and the support alone in the GTA RP community is very, very, compared to other games, I would argue it's probably the most supportive across the board game category on Twitch or live streaming, which is crazy. So you factor those things in, it's hard to walk away from that or move to something else and say no to, you know, guaranteed viewership or subscriptions or support. Like, it's hard to do that, especially if this is your income. You know, if you're supporting a family or you're doing something, it's hard to walk away from that. What a lot of people do is they do get a little bit burnt on roleplay in particular. And they'll try and play other games and they'll see things tanking straight away, and they won't give it the sufficient time it takes to really, and it's a very long time in fairness, but they'll go back to what's safe and what they know, which is a normal thing, I guess, not just in streaming, but in anything. You go back to what's comfortable and what's routine. But it's very hard to escape, and that goes for any game category. Right. But obviously GTA roleplay has a very supportive community, so
yeah, I saw that
happen. Doing something right.
Yeah, I seen, you know, I came from the Tarkov space, you know, as did Mr. Gibbons and whatnot, and he was, you know, Tarkov guy, and then he rolled, you know, took a big, you know, you take that big, it's a big step to, you know, branch out and play something else. And like you were saying, your community's there watching you because that's what they know you, and now you're going to, you know, switch it up on them. What was your sort of path to, you know, break free and start, you know, mixing things up? It
was more of a self-conscious or a conscious decision. The thing is, like people are in this industry, and obviously it's an industry where they want to make money, they want to provide money for their family, make a living, make a livelihood. So, you know, making selfish decisions based off what's the right thing to do from a business perspective is usually the right call, right? And I get that. I completely understand. For me personally, I mean, I love role playing in general. I love playing characters and acting the goofball. But there is an element still for me of, it's important that people watch me or come into my community because they enjoy the community and they enjoy me regardless of what we're playing.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, that is just the hardest adventure to go on in streaming and live entertainment, because you're jumping across game categories and communities and you're not giving people enough time to get to know you because you're consistently changing games. I just didn't want to ride coattails of people, honestly. I felt in GTA RP particularly, I felt a lot of people watched me because of who I played with and what I was a part of and the story that I was involved in roleplay, which isn't a bad thing.
Right.
But just for me personally, I wanted a little bit more. I've always wanted to be a variety streamer. I never started streaming going, I want to be a GTA roleplay streamer, you know? I wanted to try and create a community. It was more about just everything we do as opposed to just GTA roleplay or who I'm playing with or, you know, what gang I'm in, you know? Right. And that's always been very important to me. And it was more of a conscious decision now, to be honest with you. Financially and business-wise, it's been appallingly bad in terms of a decision, because the growth and the slowdown of everything, you can definitely chart it to when I started doing other things.
Yeah.
But I'm much happier in myself, and I'm much more confident. Piece. I'm much more confident with the people that come in and stick around and support, because we're, you know, there's a little bit more of a level of, now listen, I understand viewers owe you nothing. And there's this misconception out there, certainly in the streaming world, where if you change a game, your viewers should follow you, should watch you. But, you know, people are allowed to watch what they want. You know what I mean? People have their own tastes and particular, you know, preferences. So, you know, the expectation that people are going to follow you regardless of what game you have is a complete false one. But a lot of streamers have that mentality. But I think the level of authenticity in the community now is a lot better than maybe it was when I was playing at something else. You know what I mean? I feel like people who show up now show up because they like me. They like the energy. They like the community. They like the regulars in chat. And it's a much slower building process, but I think it's also, there's a level of integrity that I enjoy about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and you sort of, it's safe to do that, or not really safe to do that, but once you've established yourself, you have your community, it makes it a little bit easier that, you know, you have a base to, you know, you're going to lose some, but hopefully most of it will stick around because they know who you are.
There's definitely a level of that. I mean, there's definitely a level, but from experience, I would say that the level of, unfortunately, the way the industry is, the level of drop off is just so much larger.
Yeah.
It's a case for everything, you know, out of sight, out of mind for most people, and it's just the way. It's not just this industry; it's just the way life is. You know what I mean? Yeah. Out of sight, out of mind, and people forget about you and they move on. And people, particularly on the internet, like tastes and attention spans, and you know who the preferences, they change very quickly. You know, and if you're not there to kind of entertain someone or remind someone that you're around, they'll watch someone else. You know, and that happens when you change game categories. But that's understood out there. You know, it's common knowledge.
Yep. Yeah, and it's just getting worse and worse. So that window you have to grab somebody's attention is going smaller and smaller, just because of the way you know, whether we want to blame short form or, you know, TikToks or whatnot, the attention span of people are getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And more options as well, Noof, you know. Gone are the days where first to market and you could grow just by being present online live or putting out content, and you could just grow very well. Those days are gone because people have options. They'll watch other things. You know, if you're not interested in them straight away, they're gone. You know?
Yeah. And now you mentioned the community. You know, how would you describe the Bosh community?
Probably an older, mature kind of. There's some idiots in there as well. Don't get me wrong. Probably a more kind of laid back, mellow kind of, I would say, mature audience, I guess. And then when I say mature, we're not the most controversial. I don't really pry on the controversy. I don't really comment on it. I don't get involved in it. And we kind of, I kind of try and maintain a level of like, you know, decorum and kind of level-headedness in here, but I think I think any community you cultivate as a streamer is representative of you to an extent. Now, obviously, the game category you play will dictate like what new viewers are coming in, but generally speaking, the people who stick around and watch you, I think the tone you set and how you present yourself and how you present the community to each other is important, and the people who ultimately respect and admire and agree with your general mantra will stick around.
Yeah.
And I think I'm pretty uncontroversial, so I think we're pretty much a pretty chill, laid back, kind of nice, pleasant community. We try to be all inclusive, and we preach that a lot. So hopefully that's how people view us, because that's what I'd like us to be seen as, you know.
Nice. And then for that for that person who's coming new into the stream for the first time, what is a Bosh stream experience?
Oh God, probably Kiwi for one, trolling me from chat. That's probably the first thing people see. Kiwi's one of our mods who likes to wind me up consistently.
Yeah.
But he's only 4 foot tall, so he's angry. You know, he's an angry man. Yeah, he's an angry little guy. But just an inviting, welcoming community, honestly, especially on Discord. We've got a nice little group. We're not by any means the biggest community around, but I like to think we're very inclusive. For me, as a community head and a content creator who's created this place for people to meet, the most rewarding thing, and I still say this to this day, is when I see people, you know, the friendships that are made in the Discord and people playing together. And like, there's lots of friendships that have been made over the course of years because they've met mutually, because they watched a stream that I was streaming, you know, and they got talking in chat and they got into the Discord and then they found out they have things in common. And then, you know, it's just a lovely thing, you know, and I think ultimately we are here to create and we're here to entertain as streamers, but also as heads of community, we're here to, you know, provide a space for people to be comfortable and themselves, and a level of escapism is there, you know, because I stay away from all the bullshit, because I don't want somebody coming in here to enjoy the content and community and having to worry about things that they're trying to forget about. You know what I mean? That kind of defeats the purpose of it all. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And now, you know, when it comes to your RP streams, you know, how do you approach them from a chat standpoint? Because when you're, you know, doing like a GTARP or even a DayZ RP, there's sort of less time to interact with chat because you're sort of focusing on the story. Do you enjoy the streams where you're sort of doing something non-RP where you can really have just a good engagement with chat on that stream?
I'm a talker. I love talking with chat, and most games I play, I'm a potato as well, okay? I'm a self-admitted potato, and chat will let people know that I'm a potato. But 90% of the time, I'm looking at chat, even when I'm playing. Like, if I'm in an intense situation in Tarkov or DayZ, and someone type something in chat, I'll look at it. You know what I mean? My focus is never on the game.
Yeah.
So even in RP, I struggle to stay focused in situations. The more intense a situation, obviously, the less you can look at chat.
Yeah.
But I just like talking to chat. I like the social element of streaming more than anything.
Excellent. And now, you know, sort of jumping back to NoPixel for a second, what was your path to NoPixel? How did how did that door open for you?
So I was a console streamer, as I said. I did a lot of variety for a year, and then my community kind of forked together and actually funded me to get a new PC so I could actually PC game and stream from. And they had always told me that I should try GTA roleplay. It was literally chat telling me, you got to try GTA roleplay. You know, you've got a bit of a personality. You might enjoy it. You should really give it a go. And I had never watched roleplay before. Yeah. My idea of role playing was like, why would you do that? You know, why didn't you just play games? Blah, blah, blah. But I decided to apply. I got into it. I got into maybe a small city for a couple of weeks. I played a little bit of GTA roleplay, and then I heard that NoPixel was the big server to play on. So I applied for that, and then thankfully I got in first time, and then I got into it. I was lucky enough to meet some good people early on. 2 streamers, Tim Ack and Spaceboy, looked out for me and kind of pushed me up the priority list, or nominated me for priority, I guess. Yeah. And I got priority, and thankfully, luckily, I've had some level of priority since then, which has made life pretty easy for me. Thank God, you know.
Now, what was that application process like? You know, you fill out a bunch of questions, or do you have like some calls with people, and then, you know, like you said, you got priority. Is there like sort of a pecking order of who gets to go live that day, essentially?
Yeah. So when the server restarts, essentially anyone who tries to get in, you'll be given a tier. Now I don't know exactly the levels, but say, for argument's sake, say there's 1 to 100. There's 1 to 100. You might have people, and you mightn't use all 100 numbers, obviously, but somebody could be on priority 98, and then somebody else could be on priority 5. So conceivably, everyone with 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way up to 98 would have a further along position than the person at 4. So it's all dependent on your priority number and level of priority, and again, that goes down to how well you role play. Obviously, there's like the size of streamer you are and what you bring to the server in terms of eyes and marketing and all that kind of thing. That obviously plays a part as well. Yeah. And that's pretty much how it goes. Oh, okay. And from an application standpoint, so go on.
I was going to say, so from like a critiquing standpoint, do they come back and say, "Hey, you need to work on this," or is it not? You know, they never get to that level.
In the application, they can. Yeah. Now, fortunately enough, I got in first time, so I never really had to didn't have to go through that application process too much. Yeah. But that said, when I did it, and this was 2018. When I did my application, I actually did something different. I always had this idea and take to be different is, listen, if somebody remembers you, whether they like you or they don't like you, you're doing something right. That's always been kind of my philosophy, right? Mm-hmm. So for my application, I actually did a video application in cosplay character the character I played, you know, who was a Korean and Vietnam ex-war vet who was turned taxi driver from Texas. So I had a big Tom Selleck mustache, I had sunglasses on, a big kind of dog tags, and I did an interview. I did an application in video form. So maybe that helped my cause because it was something different and it stood out. But interestingly enough, now, as far as my understanding is for NoPixel applications anyway, they make you do a video application. Oh, I don't know if that's 100% true, but it just shows you that the thought process was there anyway, and that's what they've got to now. So,
oh, very cool. And now, you know, in your opinion, what is the state of RP today? You know, you have RP Red Dead, you've got DayZ, you know, GTA is still there. What's your opinion on where RP is today?
I guess it depends on the server you're in predominantly. You know, what is if you're talking about where all the eyes are from a streaming perspective, obviously there's also Spanish speaking servers that are huge. You know, I can't speak on Spanish speaking servers, just on the English ones, but the big one will be NoPixel. And Red Dead, obviously I've played a bit of Red Dead recently. I could probably speak on that as well. Yeah. From my experience in GTA roleplay on NoPixel, I think it's probably deviated from where it was RP wise and in character wise, and immersiveness has kind of deviated a little bit more to accommodate new viewers. And as we alluded to earlier on, the kind of less, the more viewers, when you're talking viewers now, I don't want to insult or offend anyone, but when you're talking about the masses, like the sheer volume of new viewer is going to be a younger viewer who's interested in the shootouts, the mechanical side of things, the competitive nature of winning and losing, whether you're cops or robbers or your gangs are fighting each other, like that esports kind of like shooting, driving, getaways, like that's the really, really high viewership numbers. All the streamers, most of the big streamers on GTA Roleplay are good at those things as well, you know. The pure RP'ers, while a few of them do quite well, generally speaking, they won't do as well as the mechanically gifted streamers. And that's just the way that the server has moved. It's moved towards more of an entertainment-based server with elements of roleplay, I would say. Yeah. But then you go to Red Dead, and it's a completely different concept. Obviously, there's not nearly as much viewers, and that kind of demand hasn't... The streamers and the culture follows where the demand is, right? Yeah. And that hasn't really happened on Red Dead. It's just not as popular. It's a lot more slow burn kind of role play. But it seems to be a lot more immersive in terms of people in staying in character and being in character and making effort with the role playing character. And maybe that's down to the fact that you're role playing, 200 years ago. So you're straight away, you're taking yourself out of like what your comfort zone is with mobile phones and like, cars that and stuff. Like you're in a completely different world.
That's true, yeah. Which
probably helps you lose yourself in the world a little bit more, as opposed to GTA, which is very modern. It's like contemporary day. So it's just two different worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now from a GTA standpoint, you seem like you have a lot of interaction back and forth. In Red Dead, it's just such a large map. They seem sort of, maybe it's not as frequent. And then you move over to DayZ, where you could have a large segment of stream where you may not encounter anybody from an RP standpoint, right?
Yeah, I mean DayZ, we don't call it the cross-country simulator for nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's it can be brutal at times, but that's why I choose certain maps. I choose a map called the Mask a lot of the time because the player flow is good and your interaction levels are high, and that's kind of my comfort zone. I don't like the solo duo 7, 8, 9 hour journeys as much as I do the like 1 hour short action packed. Let's move it along. Let's go on another adventure. I like packing in adventures into a stream rather than a big long one.
Yeah.
More so. So you can choose maps that are more conducive to that. And that's kind of what I tend to do. But Red Dead can be brutal as well because you're on horseback and the map is huge.
Yes. And back to DayZ for a second. Are there specific DayZ servers that are RP, or you're just in character? Hopefully somebody will play along when you meet them.
So one of the benefits of DayZ, say, over a GTA, you're obviously long-term committed to a character, and that one character has repercussions for all your actions over the long period, So if you do something, that's going to shape the future for your character. In DayZ, you can do what you want for the most part. You can role play one life, you can play yourself, you can do something else, and it doesn't fall back on your previous life. Which is very different. There's a long-term commitment to your character on GTA where that's not the case on DayZ. You can do whatever you want, really. There are roleplay servers on DayZ, and that's actually what we're going to try out very soon with Ed, Mr Gibbons. They've launched a new DayZ roleplay, DayZ I've just got whitelisted on that, so we're going to be playing that, where that's going to be similar to DayZ in terms of, similar to GTA in terms of it's one character predominantly, and you're developing a story over weeks. You know what I mean? Awesome. So there definitely are roleplay community and servers on DayZ. They're just not probably as watched because people who watch roleplay probably watch GTA more than likely.
Yeah, absolutely. And now looking back of your since you went started RPing, any really funny moments or great moments that stick out?
Oh man, I don't know if anything necessarily in city, but I was part of a group that just had some really funny, good role players, and just some of the good times, and nothing to do with like the shooting, the driving, the mechanical stuff, just the pure goofy fun, like role play and playing off each other and just laughing. I've had some really great times. I mean, recently, just off the top of my head here, I posted an old TikTok I made from a couple of years ago, where me and some of the boys, we pretended to be members of the US military, and we went and we interrogated a Russian prisoner, and it was just funny, man. It was like one of our boys actually double plays a cop, and he was playing a cop at the time, and like he was interrogating him by like doing a Rikishi. Do you ever watch WWE? We told him to Rikishi him, so he was stink facing him, and it was just pure nonsense, but absolute hilarity at the same time. You know what I mean?
Oh shoot, that's awesome.
And just good times.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. And now, I think it was last year, Rockstar bought the team that created NoPixel, or bought the application.
So they bought 5M, which is essentially they have control over all the servers in there. Yeah. So what that means going forward, I don't really know, but I imagine Rockstar kind of see the potential money involved in what's going on there, and they want to have more control over it, because there's an element of, there are licensing and copyright agreements, obviously, that you can infringe on in general on 5M, but I think by and large, Rockstar let a lot of things go, and it's up to the modders and the servers and the owners to do what they want. But I think they wanted more, especially with how big GTA 6 is going to be, because it's going to be the biggest game of all time by a country mile. Like it's going to be crazy big. And I guess they just saw the opportunity in a little bit of more revenue coming in for them and more control as to what they allow and what they don't allow, which I think is important. So yeah, they own it. Now, that's not to say they're not going to be working with and in an agreement to let people to lease out, sublet like servers to people like NoPixel to let them do what they want with a little bit of control. But ultimately, they have ultimate control over everything, which I think is a little bit different from 5M, which they don't. They have control because essentially they're playing this, they're using their game, but they don't have the direct control, which they now have. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Honestly, I don't think it'll affect the big popular servers too much. I think it'll actually probably, the problem will probably arise with the little guy. The little guy with the little server and the little community is probably going to be the one that loses out, unfortunately. They'll probably drive the traffic and get the endorsements and agreements in with the bigger places, and that will drive more people to those places, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll be interesting what they do with it. Maybe they sell advertisements for these, for the RP servers. You can buy, screen time or product placement inside of, one of their, high trafficked RP servers. Who knows? It'll be interesting.
Yeah, 100%. There's a huge amount of money to be made there, honestly, if they do it well and right.
Yeah. And now, anybody who's watching this, any advice for that person that may be interested in starting, hopping into RP?
Jump in?
Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it. Honestly, get signed up and get in. Once you start role playing, a big thing you hear about in role play is W's and L's. That's how the community like to talk about it. W is obviously winning, and taking an L is obviously losing.
Yeah.
From my experience, and I think from most people's experience, the best role play is taken when you just say yes. So if you encounter, somebody who's trying to create something for you or bring you along with something or present role play, just run with it. See where it takes you. Don't worry too much about benefiting your character or coming out on top, because generally speaking, when you start thinking with that mentality, you're thinking about ending the role play situation, because ultimately in GTA roleplay, to win a situation, you're either a cop arresting somebody, or you're a criminal getting away from the cops, or shooting the cops, or shooting a gang member and ending it, and that's generally what happens. And when you start thinking about, taking the W, you're thinking about ending the roleplay situation. So just letting it fly, and especially if you encounter an experienced role player, just go with them. Let them lead you. Let them lead you.
Yeah. Yeah. A while back, I had 41 on who did a lot of RP, and he was talking about, some people, took it way too serious and couldn't separate the acting versus getting hurt feelings. Is that something you came across too? Yeah,
definitely. Especially the viewers as well. There's a big tribalistic feel to the role play community,
Yeah.
It's very tribal. You watch your group and you watch your group, and they're against the other groups, or the cops, or whatever it is. There's definitely a very loyal tribalistic feel to groups and to streamers. I think the reality is, and this is my experience anyway, while I don't disagree with 40, the problem rises from what I kind of talked about earlier on, when as soon as the role play starts taking second fiddle, and like OOC influences come in, and people it's a little bit more relaxed in terms of like the immersion, the decision making starts getting blurred, and then you can't fall on the whole, well, this is just role play, because if you're not role playing 5 minutes before as much as immersively as you should be, who's to say you're not doing it now? And I think the real gray area these days with roleplay is, people tend to, me included, to be honest with you, when I'm on NoPixel, I'm not absolving myself of, I'm very guilty of this as well. But when you're letting outside influences and being yourself leak into your character, once that gray area starts, you can't lie on the whole, well, it's just roleplay argument, right? Because it's not as if you're being pure to the role play. You're being yourself as well at times. So who's to say this thing isn't dictated by you and not your character,
Yeah.
And I feel like from a purist role play perspective, what 41 says is completely 100% correct.
Yeah.
But the problem is the waters have been muddied so much in the last couple of years that, you know, people let OOC things dictate things in city, and then that just gives rise to a whole shitstorm of, like, you know, accusations and people getting upset and offended and not going with this. So people blame the person, and people are very quick to blame people in general, you know, but it's definitely not as clear cut as you would think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's for, you know, a myriad of reasons. But generally speaking, I would say once you lose the immersion and once the character starts getting a little bit diluted, you're giving rise to these kind of problems happening more often because people can lean on that more often, you know?
All right. Makes sense. Great answer. And now, you know, one of our friends, Mr. Gibbons, how did you come across and meet Ed?
Jesus, I don't even really. Do you know what? We started playing DayZ. He left Tarkov and he started playing Ed. He started playing DayZ. It was similar around time to when I started getting involved in it. So, obviously he's an Irish creator. There's not many Irish creators out there, honestly. I would know most of them in terms of just passing. I don't know them, many of them very well, but it's a very small place and there's not many big streamers from Ireland. And I think, honestly, I was aware of him. Obviously, he was doing great things on Tarkov, especially on TikTok. He was killing it on TikTok. His Tarkov TikToks were taking off. I wasn't even on TikTok at that point, but I was aware of him doing well there. And then he moved to DayZ, and I was playing DayZ, and we kind of crossed paths, and I guess we got kind of playing with each other to an extent. We ran into each other, very organic in terms of we were playing DayZ for a long time at the same time, but we never really ran into each other, or, you know, it was just an organic meeting, honestly. We ran into each other, we got on. The more you kind of play the same games, the more also an important thing in the content creation sphere is trust and liking how other people like work with you in terms. It's the same as an office, I guess.
Yeah.
If you meet somebody who's like-minded and, you know, looks at content and entertainment in a similar vein, and you get on, you'll try and play more with them, right? If somebody brings, I say this a lot to people, especially in role play. If you find somebody that you click with and you're very kind of, I don't know, you're on the same page, you'll want to play with that person more. And trust is a very important thing as well. If you can trust somebody, and if I talked a minute ago about like letting somebody lead you in role play, but if you trust somebody enough to like let them lead you somewhere as a creator, and you know you can trust where they're going to bring you, that's a huge thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're on the same page. He's a good dude. We've become quite good friends. We talk a lot most days off stream. Like, he's a good guy. And in many ways, even though I'm older than him and I've been in the streaming game longer than him, there are large aspects of him that I look up to, you know, and take inspiration from. And I think that's important as well, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
To play with and work with people that kind of motivate you and keep you kind of inspired is an important thing as well, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, from all the creators I've had on, I think something that's really important is having peers, like you said, you can trust with, and off stream, you can have a conversation, and they, you know, some of the things you're running into or that you have questions about, you can bounce ideas off them because they're in that same space, and it's not a, you know, dog eat dog world or anything like that. You guys are just looking to help each other out.
Yeah. And when you find that, it's a very special thing. I will say it's not as easy to find as you do think.
Yeah.
Like, to have genuine reciprocation of energies and, you know, emotional investments and friendship with people, it's not as easy to find as you think. And unfortunately, certainly in the streaming world, from my experience, usually one side is going, well, what's their angle here, or what are they looking to benefit from, you know, or am I the bigger streamer, or am I the smaller streamer, or, you know, will I bother talking, you know, there's definitely elements of that, which this, being an older dude, being a 40-year-old noob, again, I just feel like I've danced that dance. I've lived my life. I actually said to Chad earlier on, one of my big goals from when I started streaming wasn't necessarily to be a millionaire. Now, obviously, I want to provide for my family and be comfortable financially, but I want to 10, 15 years, I'd love to like go to weddings or christenings or, you know, meet up and go on holidays and meet up with some of my friends, you know, abroad or stuff like that. Like that's important to me now at my point in my life. Whereas I feel like it's not as important to a lot of people in the streaming sphere because they're just a lot younger and they haven't figured out life, or they don't know what they want from life, or they're more focused on themselves. They don't have any external responsibility.
Right.
And I get it. I understand that 100%. But I guess, you know, finding those people that kind of reciprocate energy and are mutually as invested as you is a much harder thing, you know. And I'm talking about it from a sincere perspective. We can all have friends who we talk to now and again, but I mean somebody who genuinely like is invested in you outside of just playing with you, or you know, it's a harder thing to find than you think, you know. But it's a great thing when you do find it. That's for sure.
Yeah, because like you said, in the back of your head is like, okay, what's the play here? What's the angle? Or, you know, are they clout chasing? What's, you know, you just don't know. And you've seen so much of it over the years. It's like, okay, you just have your guard up. But like you said, when you find that person or that connection, it's you know, it's a really special thing.
Yeah, listen. At the same time, you know, everyone's allowed to do their thing the way they want to do it. You know what I mean? There's no way you should do your life or things, or, you know, people have different priorities, and that's okay as well. And understanding that that's okay is a big part to, like, you know, appreciating when it does happen that bit more, I guess, you know? Yeah,
absolutely. And now, you know, when it comes to, like, you know, TwitchCon or any of the other cons, do you ever hit any of those up?
So we're going to TwitchCon EU at the end of the month.
Nice.
First convention I've been to. Can you imagine?
Wow. Are you excited?
Yeah. Very excited. And we've actually got Ed, Mr. Gibbons, is actually hosting a main stage Sunday panel for an hour, which will be on the front page on Twitch.
Get out.
We're gonna be discussing. Thoughtfully he invited me on, and we're going to be discussing role play in game and how communication in game furthers content. So that's going to be great. We got a decent panel on for that, so that's going to be really exciting. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Now, are you ready? Have you practiced signing your name yet? Because, you know, once you get out there.
No, dude. Look, and I'll be absolutely in awe and appreciative if one person comes up and says, "Hey, Bosh," you know what I mean? I'm at the age again where I'm not a drinker really anymore. I don't do the partying thing. I just want to go and meet people. It would, like, and I mean this to anybody watching, it would make my day if somebody came up and said, "Bosh, what's going on?" You know, that's just a lovely thing to have.
Yeah.
And if we can experience that once over the weekend, that'll be a big W, you know?
Excellent. Oh, that's awesome. And now, you know, away from streaming and content creation,
focusing on the Vikings preseason now, so I'm a big Vikings fan as well. I'm a big NFL fan, so I've been kind of keeping an eye on free agency.
Nice. And now, are you guys picking up anybody, or have you guys, you know?
We got 26 million left in salary cap space, so there's talk of us picking up somebody. We've got a few needs, honestly. Cornerback probably being a more pressing position, but it's just kind of interesting to see how they spend the money, because obviously they let Cousins go recently. So that's freed up a lot of salary cap space. They did obviously just make Justin Jefferson the highest paid player ever outside of a quarterback. But there's still a bit of money there because they only paid just JJ is on other JJ is on a rookie quarterback contract, so he's not going to cost much for the next 4 or 5 years. And then obviously Sam Darnold's only on 10 million for the year, so there's a bit of wiggle room. So hopefully they get somebody. I don't really know who they're looking at per se, but all I can say is the NFC North is going to be stacked next year because Green Bay are going to be good. Detroit are going to be good again. And Bears, by all accounts, could be infinitely better. So it's just I think it could be the hardest division in the league next year, honestly.
And did you see that Netflix special where they had the quarterbacks on, and Cousins was a part of that? You know, sort of the series.
I did, yeah.
I didn't know much about him until seeing that, and what a nice guy. You sort of rooted for him.
Yeah, he seems like a lovely guy. He honestly, he came across as a nice guy, just very kind of family orientated, very kind of simple.
Yeah.
And that, you know, I think that's the case for a lot of them, but he wasn't not even very flashy at all. I liked Cousins, but he wasn't going to win us the Super Bowl.
No, he's not that. He's not that caliber of a quarterback.
He's not going to go down the stretch in the playoffs and clutch it up for you. Although he is an underrated quarterback in the same regard. Regular season quarterback regular season, Kirk Cousins is an underrated quarterback, but he just hasn't done it when it counts, and I think that's always going to be how he's judged as a quarterback at the end of his career, I think.
Yeah. That's sort of the way Carr was with the Raiders too. Like, he was never going to take them to that next level. He was a decent quarterback, but not championship level quarterback.
Yeah, it happens a lot,
Yeah.
A lot of people are judged off how many rings you are, how many playoff wins your performance in the playoffs. That's when it comes down to the crunch, that's how you're judged most of the time.
Yeah. And outside of sports, what are some of your interests?
Well, I used to play a lot. I used to play a lot of sport, obviously, but since I started streaming, I just movies, Netflix shows, and being a dad. Honestly, I don't really have any per se hobbies and fishing or anything like that. I need to do more, honestly, outdoorsy. But in terms of at home, when I'm not streaming or creating content, I'm either watching a TV show with the missus or doing something with the kiddo. Now, the kiddo she's 8 and she plays a lot of Roblox, so she has been motioning to me doing something with her, and I was talking to Chad earlier on about maybe potentially. Now, I don't want to expose my child to this industry or the online world too much at too early an age, but there's also a level of, you can't protect your kids. You can only instill a moral compass set in them and teach them what's best and hope that they make a decision based off what you've taught them, because at the end of the day, they're going to be humans. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to make decisions. You can't protect them. You just got to give them the best concept of what's right and wrong and what's good and bad as you can, and hopefully they'll make informed decisions, So
encourage them to make good decisions and just teach, just be there when they fall. That's what you're there for. Exactly.
And they will make bad decisions. They will make decisions that you're not too happy with, but navigating that together and communication is part and parcel of good parenting, I think. But she wants to do Roblox with me, so we're kind of maybe thinking potentially of doing it not too common, but father versus daughter Roblox obstacle kind of challenges, things like that. Something simple, but that'll be nice to spend a little bit of time with her doing this, because she loves. I don't know whether she got it from me, but she loves. I think it's this generation. She loves the whole YouTube, making videos, doing reveals, openings. She loves all that, and I don't know where she got it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, gaming with kids is so much fun. I've got 3 kids, and I remember, my son, when he was, I think, 7 or 8, Minecraft, having the birthday Minecraft. We had 8 computers set up around a table, and all the kids were playing, and and still, they still once in a while, his buddies will get on and play a Minecraft server, and such good memories.
Roblox. I've heard Roblox. There's kids out there, who are Roblox map designers who are making
money.
Bank.
Yes, it's crazy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, well, hey, Bosh, we've come to the end of the podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time. But with past guests, before I let you go, who do you recommend in your circle that should come on and that would have a good story to tell?
Who would have a good story to tell? You know who I would recommend you try and talk to? I have a good friend called Jobless Garrett.
Okay.
And he is a man who has done so much in the online sphere. Great guy, really good dude. His wife is fantastic. They're actually expecting a baby in a couple of months. Really good guy, salt of the earth. One of those guys wears his heart on his sleeve, but he's like a guru. He's made 7 or 8 1 million plus YouTube channels. He just knows how to do it. He was actually the guy who founded the GTA RP group that I'm a member of, Chan Gang, which is probably the biggest brand in terms of NoPixel. It's got some crazy big streamers, but he was an integral part of starting that. And he's just a very good dude, and he's done a lot, and he would have a great story to tell, I would imagine.
Excellent. Where's he from?
I will happily put in a good word and try and get him in. He lives now in Miami. He's in Florida.
Yeah. Excellent. I appreciate that, man. And I appreciate coming on and doing this and sharing your story. It was really a pleasure to meet you.
And you too. And thank you so much for having me. I really, I appreciate it. It's a good chat, and it's nice to get that out there and have a chat for people to access and hopefully take what they can from what we've said and, take something positive from it, I guess.